A little known fact about trafficking is well over 70% of trafficking is facilitated through a trusting individual.
Mm,
It's a boyfriend, it's a family member, it's a parent, it's a coach, it's a teacher, but it is through a trusting relationship that a person can be groomed and wooed and drawn into and then be captured or captivated in exploitation.
yes.
So my story is not unique, but yes, learning to trust was complicated to say the least.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our ongoing goal is to help our listeners live their best, audacious lives ever. And I'm totally thrilled to have you with us here and appreciate the fact that you've taken time out of your day to join us. Now, just like a butterfly emerges from its chrysalis, breaking free from the confines of human trafficking requires immense resilience and courage. Transforming your life after such trauma is akin to that butterfly spreading its wings and soaring to new heights, embracing a life of audacity and freedom. Jennisue Jessen is a survivor of human trafficking who has dedicated her life to help others break free from exploitation and rebuild their lives. Her journey from trauma to triumph is a testament to the power of resilience and the human spirit. It's a powerful conversation that I'm certain you'll all enjoy. So without any further ado, here is Jennisue. Hey, Jennisue, thank you for being here on the Audacious Living Podcast. I really appreciate you making the time to do this. So thank you.
I am so excited to have a conversation with you, and I love your theme,
Thank you.
audacious living. I'm looking forward to talking about some audacious joy today.
Oh, absolutely, and really, uh, um, it, it's just encouraging individuals to live that best audacious life that we talk about. And I think the one thing that's been really clear to me, because you start something and as you go through, you learn more about it and yourself, and you're like, oh, I didn't realize this as And so for me, it's always been clear that this is a great way to live your life. And in terms of the benefits and where you get yourself to a better place. But what I also realized is the inspiration, hope that we can provide others by living our lives. Right. So, for example, hey, I saw Jennisue go through this and she made it through the other side. I can too. So, that hope and inspiration that we provide just by being who we are is totally fantastic. And so, that's the part that excites me. And so maybe as a starting point, maybe we can get into your story. You had to, again, the overcoming human trafficking, which is a huge issue and problem right across the country. And I'm in Canada, but it's no different, in where I'm from as well as it is in the U.S. And so maybe as a starting point, you can kind of give our listeners some insights and sort of your experiences and what kind of brought you to the point that we're at now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the invitation for the have this conversation. And I'll just throw out there a content warning for your listeners. And I won't get into the deep, dark, gritty details because it wouldn't serve your listeners or me, either one. But the frame of reference I'm coming from is human trafficking. So
Mhm.
I just want people to be aware that I can only be so PG rated with
Sure.
that.
Understood.
So with that, I'll jump in. I was sold into the sex trade by my grandfather at the age of 4. And what followed was 14 years of unimaginable. In kindergarten, I was praying every night that God would just let me die. In first grade, I had the first symptoms of a sexually transmitted infection. In second grade, I sat on a wooden pew on a Sunday morning behind a man who paid to rape me the night before. And so my growing up years were filled with ongoing, what we would now call complex or compound trauma.
Yes.
Never knowing when my grandfather was going to be a good guy and take me for chocolate ice cream and when he was going to be the villain and take me to a little side of the road motel where a pedophile was waiting to
Mm.
claim what he had paid for. And as you might imagine, that's a really hard way to grow
Absolutely.
up. How do you make
Yes.
sense of the world when every man you encounter is dangerous?
Right.
How do you make sense of the world when your innocence is stolen before you even have a frame of reference for what that is?
Mhm.
Ultimately, I came to a point of desperation my senior year in high school.
Mhm.
And common to many, many individuals who experience human trafficking is a belief that the only way to escape ultimately would be through suicide. So suicidal ideation
Right.
and even acting on that. And so I was in that place. I was so desperate to be free and thought that that was my only solution.
Mhm.
And I would credit God and his grace that he intervened the day after a failed suicide attempt. I actually found out I was pregnant. And
Mhm.
that experience awoke in me this kind of mama bear instinct that I had something to fight for and I
Right.
had an innocent baby to protect.
Mhm.
And with that, I finally had the courage to disclose enough information to a counselor that was able to successfully intervene in my situation and get myself and my son to safety. And fast forward years and years and years later, what I'm really looking forward to talking to you about is I'm living happily ever after,
That's right. That's right.
which is many, many people end up defined by their trauma.
Yes.
And alternately, I feel like I have been equipped by it.
Absolutely.
And that is an exciting and audacious thing.
Well, it is on so many levels. And so, first and foremost, congratulations, and I acknowledge that. It's very important. We acknowledge you're overcoming. And you said it beautifully. Many people are defined by the things that happen to them, as opposed to what they've done for themselves. And so, you didn't let that happen, and you escaped, if you will. At what age? What did you finally manage your way out? How old are you at this point?
I was finally free between my 18th and 19th birthday.
Oh, so young.
And yeah, so that's when I was able to disclose to my counselor and she helped facilitate my freedom.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Uh, can you sort of talk about what that did for just trust? Because to have as your grandfather you referenced to, and so it's associated a trusted family member, and
Right.
that's not the scenario. You weren't in a situation that you'd expect a trusting family member to put you in. I guess the whole process of trusting again and being able to trust, how has that been, or how was it for you?
That is a fabulous question. You know, a little known fact about trafficking is well over 70% of trafficking happens is facilitated through a trusting individual. It's
Mm,
a boyfriend, it's a family member, it's a parent, it's a coach, it's a teacher, but it is through a trusting relationship that a person can be groomed and wooed and drawn into and then be captured or captivated in exploitation.
yes.
So my story is not unique, but yes, learning to trust was complicated to say the least. Like I said, I would say trauma is any event that changes the way I view myself, I
Mhm.
view others, or I view God.
Gotcha.
And by that I mean how I view myself, I am no longer feel safe in the world. Like I can't trust that I can make the correct choices. If I hadn't gotten in the car, if I hadn't worn that skirt, if I hadn't gone down that alleyway, I'm questioning myself. Or certainly in my case, questioning others translated to doubting all men. I thought all men
Right.
were dangerous.
Right.
And I had a logical, legitimate reason for believing that.
Absolutely.
However, you know, and I know 50% of the world's population are not actually unsafe. Just because they have XY chromosomes does not make them unsafe.
Right.
And over years and time, I have met some really incredible, noble, fierce men who are compassionate and humble and fight for freedom. And my husband was one of those. So when I met my husband in college, I was not interested in dating. I was not
Sure.
interested in men. I was angry at God. Certainly, my trauma changed the way I viewed God as well. But I was working as a waitress. He and his friends came in one night. And by the time the end of the evening was over, I knew that I knew that I knew that he was my future husband.
Wow.
And this year we will celebrate our 30th anniversary.
Oh,
But
congratulations.
honestly, learning to trust, it has been a journey,
Yeah.
sometimes crawling forward on bloody knees, trying to figure out
Mm.
where I'm safe, what I can trust him with.
Yep. Yep.
And even now, I mean, I'm 30 plus years into my recovery, and there's still sometimes nights that I sleep with the lights on, or still some nights that I'm like, touch me not,
Mhm.
because I'm haunted
Yeah.
by my
Yeah.
trauma. And one of the things that has proven to me his trustworthiness is his capacity, my husband's capacity to just sit with me and love me
Mm.
anyway.
Mm.
Like, I'm here. I'm here whenever you want to be touched. I'm here when you don't want to be touched. That he is fierce and brave and also profoundly safe.
Yeah.
And that it sparked in me the idea that perhaps not all men are dangerous.
And the ability to hold space, which is exactly what he did for you, is just hold that there and allow
Right.
you to make the determination as to when you felt safe enough to proceed. I'm curious about just the healing process. Did it start with your husband, or did it start prior to that? And what did that look like?
I would say my healing process definitely started before my husband,
Mhm.
but has run parallel to my husband's journey. I've come to the idea that I don't know, this is just Jennisue ideology, so you can throw it out the window.
Sure.
But every human I meet has
Mhm.
been wounded in some way,
Yeah.
and we are all healing in some way. We're driven to pursue healing. So I would say my healing uh, started before I met my husband and has continued in a parallel path. He had his own baggage, his own
Sure.
history that he had
Sure.
to heal from. Um, and it came in a variety of different ways. But I think primarily it springs from a place of hope. Like there has to be something more than this. As a wee little bitty kid praying every night that God would let me die, that was this desperate hunger for better than what I knew. There
Right.
has to be some
Mhm.
place that is safe, that is full of joy, that is glorious. And that drive, I think, is common in the human spirit. It's
It
this
is.
spirit of resilience that we're built with that drives our healing, and
Well,
certainly is impacted by relationships.
and I absolutely love that, Jenny Sue, because we when faced with adversity, we always have a couple options, right? We accept it or believe that there's more for us, and that this is it. There's more that's
Right.
available to us, and to know that at a young age you believe that there was more. That's a huge part of the healing. Although you haven't officially entered into the healing process itself, that's a huge step in that direction. So I mean, that's and to do so at a young age is fantastic.
Yeah. As a little bitty, I dreamed of freedom. I
Got you.
dreamed of freedom, and I found it, which is
Mm,
such a
mhm.
beautiful and glorious thing. And not by my own will. Um, if it was up to me, I wouldn't have survived it. There were certainly circumstances that I shouldn't have survived it.
Right.
But again, I would refer back to the grace of the divine that carried me
Mhm.
through when I was not able to move another step.
Understood. Can I ask about your parents? Where were they in the picture? You talked about your grandfather, but where were your
Yeah,
parents?
my grandfather was the primary villain in my story, and
Mhm.
generally I don't make much reference to my parents because in reality they were functionally absent.
Gotcha.
And they did the best they could. My dad was an alcoholic and my mom was addicted to my dad. And so, as with many households that struggle with addiction, there was a lot of instability in the house. And when that happened, I think my parents sincerely wanted to do what was best. And so they would send me 3 hours away to my grandparents' house. And I spent a good deal of my growing up years at my grandparents' house, 3 hours away. And like I said, they were doing the best they could with what they had. I don't believe they would have sent me there had they believed he was
Sure.
the villain that I experienced him to be. Um, but they were dealing with their own trauma and their own addictions, and so a 3 hour buffer was plenty to provide my grandfather the cover and the access he needed to carry
Sure.
out his plans.
And so the thought of going to your parents, what was happening to you, that was not a thought or a possibility in your mind?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it is one of the default questions, like, why didn't you tell? Why didn't you escape?
Mhm.
Why?
Sure, sure.
And it's a valid question. My trauma starting at the age of 4. 4 is the first time I was sold for sex. But I know my grandfather had had access to me a significant amount of time before that. So
Right,
I already was not a virgin the first time I was sold for sex.
right, right.
And when somebody you trust is doing these things and
Mhm.
is telling you, if you tell, I'll kill your mom or I'll kill your dad or I'll kill
Mm,
your dog, and actually displays that by killing things in front of you,
mm,
you believe, I believed he held the power of life and death. I believed it was my fault.
mhm,
I believed if I told, no one would believe me.
mhm.
Um, and in certain ways, he proved that to be true over and over and again.
Right,
So there was an opportunity at the age of 9, perhaps, to have disclosed, but um, in reality, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I was not able. There were clues, though, and this might be really pertinent to your audience if they have kids at home and they worry
yep,
something might have happened. Even though I didn't use words, there were definitely clues. Like in kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher had us draw pictures for Thanksgiving. We were supposed to draw family pictures,
yep.
and I drew my parents and, my whole family group, my grandmother, and everybody looked normal except my grandfather was 2 or 3 times the size of everybody else.
Mm,
And my grandfather was naked and, let's see, aroused in
gotcha.
my kindergarten image that I drew.
Mm,
Everybody else was clothed.
right,
He was naked. He was double, triple size, and he
right,
was aroused. So
right.
my kindergarten teacher was concerned, called my mom. My mom picked me up from school, took the picture, tore it up, was furious and embarrassed,
Mm,
and insisted we don't draw pictures like that.
right.
But didn't ask, like,
Why?
why would I
Right,
draw my
right,
grandfather
right, right.
like that?
Mhm.
Having the sexually transmitted infection in kindergarten. Again, my first grade teacher and took me to the school nurse. The nurse called my mom. My mom picked me up, took me to the doctor, got the appropriate treatment, but didn't ask. So
Mm,
there were ways that I was telling
yep, yep. Well,
that,
well, it's interesting. I'd say that even the universe was sort of telling as well, dude, in addition to you. And
right,
it just, if
right,
you were, if you're the um that adult, that parent, that caregiver, that is inquisitive enough or curious enough, I think you're able to you can spot the clues, right? But in this instance,
right.
that didn't seem to be the case.
Yeah. My mom, like I said, she was doing the best she could. She was in
Sure.
her own trauma and unable to see outside to the places that I was being hurt.
Right.
So I didn't use words to disclose, but there definitely were clues if there was an attentive caregiver that were
Understood.
very obvious.
Understood. Understood. So, so let's fast forward a little bit now. So you have your escape. You've got is your son born at this point, or you're still pregnant with him or carrying?
Yep. My son was born Christmas break, my freshman year of university, and he is amazing. He will be
Awesome.
34 years old this year.
Awesome.
Um, Beautiful blue-eyed boy, tore his way into my world and turned everything upside down,
Lovely.
but was really the vehicle for my escape. And every year, actually, he and I celebrate April 26th is the day after my failed suicide attempt that I found out that I was pregnant for him. And every year I speak into him. We have this celebration, just he and I, where I speak into his life that he was a hero from conception. I shouldn't have survived it, but he was created with purpose and changed my life in every possible positive way before he could think or act or make choices. Just by virtue of his existence, he was a hero from conception.
Beautiful. And if I may ask, the father was absent, or what was, did that relation with the father?
Um, yeah, that's another area that's a little sticky. In high school, I had a boyfriend. I was dating
Hmm.
one boy. He and I were involved. And also, I was continuing to be exploited sexually.
Got you. Okay.
So, um, yeah, my
Got you.
boyfriend was listed as the father of record on the birth certificate. And also, I've never known for sure,
Sure. Understood. Understood.
the
So,
the parentage.
right. No, I understand.
He is
Now,
mine.
yeah, well, I was gonna say, I mean, at the end of the day, and especially the bond that you formed with him is so beautiful, and I do love the fact that you know what you speak into your son in terms of his purpose, and I guess his life purpose, and to recognize that every April is a wonderful, beautiful thing, actually, Jennisue. So I'm glad to hear that. The resiliency skills that you've developed, one of those, I guess, unintended, consequences, but I think more in a positive sense, that you've developed these things to make you better. Certainly, the manner in which you learned them wasn't ideal, but you have these skills. Can you talk about sort of resiliency and how important that has been to you in your life now?
Yeah, I think, for me, it seems like a really simplistic answer. And
Mhm.
that's where the magic
Mm,
is that my emotional state follows my thoughts.
yes.
Okay. If I'm thinking dark, scary thoughts, my body's going to respond with dark, scary neurotransmitters, chemical reaction. It's going to activate me to fight or flight.
Yes.
If I'm thinking warm, happy thoughts, then again, my body's going to respond appropriately. We're designed to heal, we're designed to work. And so the simplistic answer is it comes down to how I frame things. What happened absolutely was catastrophic. It should never happen to another child. I spend day in, day out fighting against exploitation. But a lot of people might ask, well, why me?
Yep.
Why did it happen to me? And it could be anything, not just exploitation, but it could be a car wreck or cancer or
Mhm.
why me? And we get really angry at God or the universe or our neighbor. Why me? Why me?
Yep.
Why
Yep.
me?
Yep.
And I would ask, like, why not me?
Beautiful
We're
question.
we're all human and we live in a broken world. And there are car wrecks and cancer and
Yep.
catastrophes. Those are all around us.
Hmm.
And the guarantee is we are going to experience heartbreak. We're going to experience
Yep.
brokenness. And what are we going to do with it? So every circumstance and every opportunity gives me an invitation to become better or bitter.
Sure. His
So
love.
rather than looking at obstacles or challenges or pain, I look at invitations. Like even now, if something provokes me, if it challenges me, and I feel like ugh, ugh, all the things,
Yep.
I can have a 90-second emotional reaction, a chemical response.
Yep.
And then I can take a deep breath and go, okay, what's the invitation here?
Mm,
What does this say about who I am? What does this say about my purpose in the world? How does this equip me to have a greater impact? And so again, it seems like a super simplistic answer and it's really well it's much easier to say than live. It takes practice.
yeah.
But the
Yeah.
practice is why not me? And what is this inviting me to? What's the good? What's the glory? What's the key to my freedom or somebody else's in this
Mhm.
invitation?
it's such, I mean, those questions are such, they're such great mindfulness exercises to ask yourself as you're going experience or a experience regardless. Is you said cancer, death. I mean, there's all sorts of things, the catastrophes that happen. But the reality is, when you ask those questions, it frames you a little bit better. And you're like, okay,
It
so
does.
this is happening, and okay, this is where I'm at, and this is what I'm saying, as opposed to letting it consume you. You're almost able to like take a step back, take a
Yep.
step back and do a proper survey of the whole area to understand, what's happening around you, and to be able to do that. And it's not an easy thing, so I don't want to make it
Right.
sound like it's just do this and you're good. It does take some time. It takes some patience and some grace on ourselves, right, to be able to go through
Right.
that process.
Well, even a really practical example would be, I made reference to sometimes with my husband, like I'm a touch me not,
Yep.
right? And so putting this into practice in a very tangible way, when I'm feeling that, when I'm feeling haunted or triggered by something and I'm a touch me not, the invitation then is to go, okay, why am I feeling triggered? Oh, I smelled cologne. It smelled like my grandfather. My
Mm,
body responded with fight or flight. That is awesome. That is a praiseworthy dynamic. My
yes.
whole body was mobilized to keep me safe. Amen. And then what? Well, this is an invitation to use my voice. I can tell my husband, you know what? I don't feel safe right now. I get to choose, I get to use my voice.
Yes.
And when it's honored, it brings another level of healing, right? So it just compounds, it grows, and it is a practice. It's not an immediate fix,
No.
but I would say that's where the magic is, just in that space of what's the invitation here.
Mm, beautiful, beautiful. um the part about the story that I find particular enjoyment in is what happens afterwards. And so, we all have that choice. What do we do? So we get through this thing, we overcome it, then what next? And what you've done in a really profound and powerful way is combat, this thing of human trafficking through Compass 31, which is you are the founder and CEO of. I wonder if you sort of talk about what Compass 31 is and what it's looking to do.
Yeah. So Compass 31 is an international nonprofit NGO, 501c3 status. And we exist to fight human trafficking with prevention, restoration, and leadership development. So there's a couple of things that make Compass 31 unique.
Mhm.
One, we have this prevention tool that's currently being utilized in 43 nations around the world, which is super
Wow.
cool. Nationals are taking this tool and translating it in their own languages and going to at-risk areas and preventing, disrupting trafficking as it's happening, which is
Wow.
such a cool thing. And then restoration, we have restoration programs in Thailand, Bangladesh, the Middle East. We're partnering with a new outreach center in Athens, Greece.
Mhm.
And I work closely with survivors here in the US. And then the leadership development is how we walk alongside our program participants, those that have come
Mhm.
out of exploitation. And we walk alongside them to the highest level of education they desire.
Mhm.
So we've had two graduate with their master's degree in social work. Um, Somebody graduate law school and pass her bar exam.
Yeah.
We, I don't have a cookie cutter model. Like we're going to pull them all out and everybody's going to make jewelry. That's
Right.
great. Some
Right.
organizations do it successfully, and I love
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
But I'm a mama at heart, and I want them to be whatever they were intended to be before the trauma happened.
Yes.
So, what's your dream? Okay, let's do that. And we provide that program. We actually pay them a monthly salary based on their performance and
Yeah.
participation in school.
Okay.
The better they do, the more they show up, the more money they earn in their savings account. So that when they graduate from our program, not only do they have a degree
Yep.
in whatever they wanted, whether it's trade school or grad school, but they generally have in savings between 1,500 and 2,000 US dollars in savings to
Amazing.
start their life with. And so
Amazing.
those are the things that make Compass 31 kind of unique in the counter trafficking movement.
Sure. it's more than just advocacy. Not that the advocacy work isn't important, because it absolutely is, but you're also equipping and empowering, is I think is a fantastic word to describe what you're actually doing. And by doing those things, you're allowing, the survivors to see a whole new world that they probably didn't think was possible.
Yeah. They're not victims. They're humans. They're individuals that are some of the most fierce, beautiful, resilient humans on the planet. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how many humans know how to walk through unthinkable trauma day after day
Right.
after day and get up and get dressed and put on your makeup and go do it again? Right? It is this incredible proof of the resilience of the human spirit.
That's outstanding. It really, really is. I just, again, for me, I boil it down, and not to minimize or simplify it, but just giving people hope. Like that for me is
Yeah.
huge, and because there's so much that comes out of that, right? And how much, well, I mean, the possibilities are endless, quite frankly. So when we talk about, living that audacious life, you're doing all of these things. You're taking people who've gone through all sorts of challenges, and the adversity they face and the difficulties they had to overcome, to now be able to show them how audacious their life can be. And that's where the hope comes in. And that to me is probably my favorite part, man, because it's what people do on either
Yeah.
side that I love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you might have this experience, we're fast forwarding to where I am now, but you've got just such a big, great smile. So you
Mhm.
might relate to this. I sometimes wake up in the morning and my face is tired from smiling so much in my sleep. Right? Like, who does that? It's one thing to have a really joy filled conversation
Yes,
or go
yes,
to a party and interaction and you come away that way. Right?
yes, yes,
But
yes.
I regularly wake up like that. I wake up and my face is like, oh my gosh. I just because I have this front row seat to watching the most miraculous unfolding of people becoming everything they were intended to be before the trauma happened.
Thanks. That's amazing. That's amazing. I love it. I love it. Jenny, so what do you want what our listeners to know about Compass 31, or in terms of even like support? What can we ask of our listeners?
Yeah, they can come find me online. Digital world makes it really easy to access people. Our website's www.compass31.org, 31. And they can find me on Facebook or Instagram. They can find me in LinkedIn, all the places. Jennisue Jessen, Compass 31. Um, the thing that I would love for people, the way that I would love for them to engage, has very little to do with me or Compass 31, though, is that I think the way that we change the world is when we slow down and see the people in front of us. It certainly would have changed my world as an exploited child if somebody had the presence and the quiet and the stillness and the safety to sit down and see me
Yes,
and intervene in a healthy way. And the thing is, there's broken people all, not broken people, there are wounded people all
yes,
around us
yes.
that are in need of healing. And
Mhm.
so, if your listeners are interested in counter trafficking and overcoming and resilience, certainly follow us online because that's all I talk about. Um, but the key to combating trafficking
Mhm.
is being aware of the people in front of you. There's traumatized people everywhere we go. Trafficking is happening in every state, in every city, in every
Yes,
country.
yes.
And they're at the grocery store, they're in your kids' school, they are on the street corners, they're in the community centers, they're in the churches. And you and I, we got to slow down and see who's in front of us because
Mhm.
that's where transformation and healing happens.
And again, that's one of the things that are very easy and simple to do, right? If just opening up our awareness, um, you
Yeah,
know, just taking a moment, seeing people for who they really are, as opposed to, like, I always oftentimes joke, how you'll like, you think of it like a work office environment where people are, hey, good morning, how are you? And they don't even stick around and hear what people say because they're off, kind of thing, right? And they're just
right,
saying the good morning because it's customary to say, but really it's good morning, how are you, Jenny Sue? Like, that's what it needs to
right.
be. And then I give you that, and what I'm doing is giving you that space to be able to say, hey, this is where I'm at, right?
Right.
But we can't do that until we do the thing again. You slow down, stop, see people who they are, make the space for them, and then be
Right.
ready to receive. Like those things can't happen unless we're doing those things.
Right. And even that when you ask the question and they go, I'm fine, like lean in, like,
Yeah.
oh,
I
what's
mean,
fine mean?
yeah,
What's fine mean? Because it didn't sound like a happy sort of fine. How can I love and serve you today?
that's
That's
right.
my follow-up question,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
So not only asking the question to make space for the answer, but like read between the lines. What are they really communicating?
That's right. That's right. And you know what?
Yeah,
The answer may not always be human trafficking, but doesn't mean that the question isn't worth asking. It can be a bevy of things
absolutely.
that are as equally as important, but unless we are taking that time, as we talked about, then we'll never ever find out.
Yeah, it could be, addiction, it could be
Sure.
disease, it could be some other trauma, it could be chronic pain, it could be so many things. We're all human and we're stumble tripping through a broken world, healing together.
Yes. Jennisue, this has been so awesome. I've appreciated the time, and I have to say, congratulations first and foremost on not just what you're doing with Compass 31 and the advocacy work, and then the tools that are being worldwide used and maximized, but even getting on your own journey of personal healing, because that's really none of the other great stuff happens unless you aren't able to get on that path where you need to get on, and you've absolutely done that and making a difference to so many. So congratulations. I certainly want to acknowledge that and say, keep up the great work. And thank you for being here today on the Audacious Living podcast and sharing your story. It was fabulous sharing, man. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have conversations about transformation because it's possible for everyone.
It absolutely is. Jennifer,
Yeah.
be well. All the best.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Back we are here on the podcast, and I first and foremost, I've got to congratulate Jennisue again for her advocacy work with Compass 31, the healing as well that she went through, and not only the healing, but the transformation that she had to do to get herself to that better place, and then now, in turn, being able to help others positively, and that's such a wonderful thing, and it's absolutely outstanding. So congrats again, Jennisue. You know, in this episode, she shared her remarkable story of overcoming unimaginable trauma and finding healing. You know, her insights into resilience, trust, and transformation are invaluable for anyone facing adversity and seeking a path to a brighter future. Jennisue's story is a powerful reminder that no matter the darkness we face, there's always a flicker of light waiting to guide us towards healing and wholeness. Through courage, perseverance, and unwavering faith, Jennisue has shown us that it's possible to not only survive, but thrive after enduring the worst of human experiences. And now, if Jennisue's story has touched your heart and you'd like to connect with her directly, I'd encourage you to check out the contact details in the show notes. And you can, again, certainly reach out to her for further inspiration and guidance on your own personal journey of resilience and transformation. Learn more about Jennisue's work by visiting her website, or as well, she's active on social media platforms, and she offers valuable resources and support for survivors of human trafficking and individuals seeking to rebuild their lives. Thank you for tuning in to the Audacious Living Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please follow, like, subscribe, or share if you haven't already done so. That's how we reach even more listeners and continue to inspire others to live their most audacious lives. You know, I'd encourage you to be bold and audacious and never give up on your journey to greatness. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.